Welcome viewers, you're inside Jamaica Magazine. I'm Adrian Atkinson and it is so much my pleasure to be your host for today's show. Coming up, you'll get a couple how to do videos on applying for a birth certificate and preparing meals grown from your own backyard. Then we hear from the Legal Aid Council on how to go about certain processes regarding accessing justice. All this and more. But first, the news.
Good day, I'm Stephen McHugh and this is your JIS News for Monday, March 6, 2023. Government will be spending an additional $100 million in response to the current meteorological drought that the country is experiencing. The sum is in addition to an initial $50 million previously announced. Prime Minister Andrew Holness made the announcement during a press conference on Friday. He says the response will be channeled through the Ministries of Economic Growth and Job Creation, Local Government and Rural Development, and Agriculture and Fisheries.
The government is putting in more resources. The resources will be targeted to needs. Of course, if it worsens or lasts longer than we expect, then we will come back to the nation, explain a new strategy of how we will assist.
Members of Parliament will receive an allocation through the Constituency Development Fund, but only in the parishes that have been assessed as being in need.
We still have sufficient supplies in our catchment and in our treatment facilities and in our reservoirs, even though some of them are showing decline. The utility areas, meaning the areas served largely by the NWC through metered water, they are not affected as badly as the rural areas. And so for this phase of our drought response, we're going to be focusing on the rural parishes, and we will be directing the funds by need.
The Prime Minister says urban communities that are affected will also benefit from the allocation. Additional trucks are also being purchased by the NWC to increase its trucking capacity. In the meantime, Mr. Holness is urging Jamaicans to conserve water to help mitigate the impact of the drought. 11 parishes are affected by the meteorological drought. The Executive Board of the International Monetary Fund, IMF, has approved funding of approximately $1.7 billion for Jamaica. This is being facilitated under its Precautionary and Liquidity Line, PLL, and Resilience and Sustainability Facility, RSF. Under a 24-month arrangement, the country can pull down $968 million from the PLL as insurance against risks for higher commodity prices. It will also serve as a buffer against tighter-than-envisaged global financial conditions and new COVID-19 outbreaks. Under the RSF, Jamaica will be able to strengthen its physical and fiscal resilience to climate change, advance decarbonization of the economy, and manage transition risks. The RSF is expected to catalyze funding for climate priorities from other official lenders and the private sector. The IMF has praised Jamaica's response to recent global challenges, pointing out that the government's interventions have led to the downward trend of public debt, and the overall fiscal balance is in line with the medium-term fiscal framework. Meanwhile, Jamaica's debt stock has decreased from $2.18 trillion in March last year to $2.16 trillion last month. Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark says debt service obligations for the 2023-24 financial year will be lower than the current year ending March 31. He was providing an update during last week's meeting of the Standing Finance Committee of the House of Representatives.
Last year, the amortization, meaning the debt, the principal repayment on our debt was $162 billion, and we're forecasted in 23-24 that the repayment of debt, meaning obligations that come due, the principal that we're repaying, is $125 billion. So it is less by approximately $37 billion.
Minister Clark also reveals that the bauxite levy inflow to the government's coffers this fiscal year is expected to total $1.2 billion. This, he says, is one of the better years, rebounding from past years of zero levy being collected.
You recall we went through a period where bauxite levy to the country was zero. Bauxite levy in 2019-20 was zero. Bauxite levy in 2021 was zero. Then we collected $2.4 billion in 21-22. some of which related to 1920 and 2021. We had one company in particular where there was bauxite levy that was due over a number of years, and that came into the previous fiscal year.
Dr. Clark says the government is projecting to collect approximately $1.3 billion for the 2023-24 financial year. Tourism stakeholders are being urged to take action to promote sustainable practices that benefit the ocean and marine systems. Minister of Tourism Edmund Bartlett made the call at the recent Port Royal Lecture Series put on by the Caribbean Maritime University. He was speaking on resilience for the blue economy.
To ensure that the tourism industry plays its part in contributing to ocean sustainability, there needs to be what I call a seriousness of intent, purpose, and action among us, the tourism stakeholders, at all levels to address industrial action that harm ocean and marine resources.
The blue economy refers to the sustainable use of the ocean's resources for economic growth. Minister Bartlett says a blue economy approach for tourism will place emphasis on preserving the environment.
It is my view that a blue economy approach, where ecosystem services are properly valued and incorporated into development planning, will further advance the transition of the tourism industry, guiding tourism development and promoting lower impact activities such as ecotourism, nature-based tourism.
And finally, local businesses and exporters are being urged to take advantage of opportunities to expand exports to the UK market. Minister of Industry, Investment and Commerce, Senator Aubin Hill, says this large market values approximately £496 billion. He was speaking at the first UK-Jamaica Export Business Forum last week. Both countries used the event to renew efforts to grow trade and investments. Awareness was also built on opportunities in the UK through the CARIFORUM UK Economic Partnership Agreement, EPA.
There are a host of benefits made available to Jamaican exporters, including being provided with market intelligence and technical assistance, and don't underrate that. That's important. And I implore local business entities to delve into the details of the partnership agreement.
Minister Hill says he will be leading a trade and investment mission to Trinidad on March 15, then to the Dominican Republic shortly after, and to Britain later this year. Meanwhile, the UK's High Commissioner to Jamaica, Judith Slater, says trade barriers between the United Kingdom and the Caribbean are being permanently removed through the Economic Partnership Agreement. Duty-free access is also being provided to the UK market for Jamaica and other CARIFORUM exporters.
Trade between our two countries had been broadly stagnant for the best part of a decade, which is not where we want it to be.
I wish to thank the UK Department for International Trade for inviting the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce and JAMPRO to partner and collaborate on this event. We're very clear here in our agency as well as at our ministry that as a small island developing state, sustained trade is essential if we are to achieve economic growth.
The UK-Jamaica Export Business Forum provided exporters with an update on the implementation of the EPA and opportunities for expansion and diversification of exports into the United Kingdom. And that's it for JIS News Today. I'm Stephen McHugh. Thanks for watching.
Water is precious. So we encourage everyone to practice the 4 R's of water conservation. Always remember to reduce your use of water wherever possible. Replace water wasting devices with water savings devices. Reuse water wherever possible. And wherever leaks are found, please repair them and repair them quickly.
Don't delay. Practice the 4 R's of water conservation today.
This official document is issued after a child's birth. It highlights the child's name, parents' names, place and date of birth, and nationality. Do you know which document this is? Let's find out.
The Registrar General's Department, RGD, is an executive agency and Jamaica's sole repository of birth records. Every birth that occurs in Jamaica must be registered with the RGD. This establishes a permanent and official record of each person's existence, where they were born, and the identity of their parents. This affords the individual the right to an official identity and nationality, which is also the basis for accessing social and economic benefits. The registration process typically begins shortly after the mother gives birth in hospital or a birthing facility where the relevant form is completed by a registration officer. The process is complete once all relevant signatures are affixed to the document and the registration fee is paid. Some parents are required to do a follow-up visit with the RGD for one or more reasons. If the couple is unmarried, they may have to visit to have the father's particulars added to the form. If a child's name was not decided at birth, the parent must submit a certification of naming form. The birth certificate will be issued within 3 months for babies who were named in the hospital. Where the registration of birth is done digitally, the RGD also has the capacity to provide digital birth certificates so that parents will be able to leave the hospital with the document. Beyond bedside registration, to get a birth certificate, you must apply to the Registrar General's Department. This can be done online at www.rgd.gov.jm or by visiting any of the RGD's offices across the country. When applying, ensure that you have the following information for the person or child on whose behalf you are seeking the birth certificate: the full and correct spelling of the person's name, their sex, date, and place of birth, as well as the parish. You also need the birth entry number, full and correct spelling of the person's mother and father's names, date, and place of registration. If you don't have a birth entry number, you will need to fill out an online birth search application form. The birth entry number is on the top right-hand corner of the birth certificate, usually 2 letters and 3 or 4 numbers if you have an old one, and on the certificate of registry or the pink slip. Complete the application form and make the required payment for either the express or regular service using your credit or Visa debit card. The Registrar General's Department lists the costs for getting a certified copy of a birth certificate on its website. The current price to get the first copy is $1,500 Jamaican dollars. Additional copies will cost $500 each. Normally, it takes anywhere between 6 and 8 weeks to process a birth certificate application. However, you can make use of the RGD's 7 to 10 business days express service or 3 to 4 business days express service. If you are overseas, you also have the option of asking a family member or friend in Jamaica to assist you with getting the birth certificate. This option is usually less costly and tends to be the fastest route. Express applications for overseas customers are processed within 7 to 10 business days, and ordinary applications are processed within 4 to 6 weeks. All overseas customers will receive 2 copies of the certificate at costs based on the region in which they reside. If the child was delivered at home or any place outside of a hospital or birthing center, the parents must visit the RGD with an informant, that is, a witness or household member, to register the birth. Ideally, this should take place within 6 weeks of the birth or up to a year, the latest. Persons who fail to register their children's birth within the specified year will have to complete a late registration form. This then creates a record of the birth, which is needed before making an application for a birth certificate. Among the information required for completing the late registration form are your child's first primary or prep school records, baptismal record, 3 statutory declarations, a list of all children born to the mother, and a certificate of naming. A late registration fee of $6,000 is charged for processing in 4 to 6 weeks and $8,500 for 7 to 10 business days. Parents will be interviewed as part of the application process and will receive a birth certificate when the process is completed, with the standard RGD service costs and processing time applied.
The Legal Aid Council is a statutory entity under the Ministry of Justice. As its name states, it provides legal assistance to Jamaican citizens who seek justice. Learn more next.
Yo. All right, yo, I make a call.
Hello?
Yeah, Jen, auntie, just get a call from the station here. Them lock up Johnny.
Lord have mercy. So where them have him there for?
Some gun business in a taxi and them something.
Myself out of trouble. Business not even going too right. Oh God.
No man, enough affordable money now. You can go to a legal aid council, them have a list of lawyer where well them provide it free.
Alright, my love.
Yeah man, just go down there and talk to somebody.
We will meet you there in a little while.
Johnny's case is one of some 3,000 for which the Legal Aid Council makes duty counsel representation each year. The duty counsel service provides for free legal representation from a lawyer at the police station for persons arrested, detained or remanded. The assigned counsel will visit the person in need and provide help at the various stages: the lockup, identification parade, interrogation, and apply for station bail or bail by the court. Lockup visits and bail application are free of cost and require no application form. Everyone has the right to justice through the country's justice system, even if they cannot afford the cost for legal services. The Legal Aid Council has been ensuring this restricted access to justice, and lawyers assigned complete hundreds of some 1,500 court cases annually, benefiting hundreds of children and adults. Legal aid is the system that provides legal representation for Jamaicans who can ill afford to pay for this service whenever they come in conflict with the law, thus ensuring access to justice for all persons without financial barriers. The organization established to support these services is the Legal Aid Council. The Legal Aid Council, a statutory body within the Ministry of Justice, governs the legal aid system. For court representation, the Legal Aid Council or the court office completes an application form on behalf of the client and assigns a lawyer to represent the client until the end of the matter. All attorneys assigned court matters are private attorneys required to vigorously defend the right of the client, take full instructions from the client, advise the client, and ensure the best outcome on behalf of the client. Cases involving murder matters only require assigned attorneys to have 10 years experience or more. Where a defendant requires DNA, handwriting, or other specialized expertise to advance their case, the Legal Aid Council will undertake the cost for a client unable to afford these professional services. While the Legal Aid Council provides full representation in court for clients with criminal matters, the Council only provides consultations on civil matters before determining whether the individual can afford legal representation. Thereafter, the Council provides an attorney to assist with a court matter. The duty counsel representation from the point of arrest to the first court appearance is free and it does not require the completion of an application form.
There are two main ways to access legal aid for criminal matters. One is the duty counsel stage. This is where a person has been taken into police custody and you're entitled to a lawyer. No application to fill out, no contribution fee to make from the moment you are taken into custody until your first court date. That is duty counsel. The officer has a duty to call duty counsel. Every station should have a list of the duty counsel available. If they don't, contact the Legal Aid Council for an up-to-date list. If it's a family member that comes to the Legal Aid Council or the clinics, if the person is in custody, not charged, no application form, no fees. The council or the clinic makes a call wherever the person is to an attorney who has his office near to that location and assigns the attorney. The attorney at the end of the matter sends in a claim to us. So the client makes no payment to the attorney.
Good morning. Thank you for calling the law firm of Stone and Brighton. How may I help you?
So the Duty Council is mandated to ensure that all the rights set out in the law for question and answer are observed for you as a citizen. All the rights and protection surrounding ID parades are maintained. Additionally, if the lawyer observes a child, any person under 18 being held at an adult lockup, that lawyer must make an application for the child to be removed to a juvenile facility. So that's the Duty Council stage. For the court aspects, if the judge observes that the person is without a lawyer, the judge will invite the clerk or assistant clerk to interview the person and grant legal aid. So the citizen is protected at every stage. At the Duty Council stage, some people would have been released after the ID parade, released after the question and answer. But for those who have been charged, you're entitled now to a lawyer to represent you during the trial. For that, there's an application form that the court would fill out or the Legal Aid Council or a clinic would fill out. And you may be asked to make a contribution. But the person who is not able to make any contribution will be granted help. If the means test shows that at the time you're not able to pay anything, then it would be zero contribution. So it is designed in a way that it helps rather than it obstructs. The client will basically be stating whether they have any income and any expenditure, the bills they have to pay, number of children that they have to support, etc.
The Legal Aid Council pays the private lawyer for his or her services to the legal aid client at the completion of the matter. If the client can contribute towards the process, they make payments at any branch of Scotiabank and not to the lawyer.
That contribution, there's no deadline on it. If the person says at the next month end, we are flexible. What we find now is that more Jamaicans are now able to approach the court, and whether funds are there or not, whether unemployed or not, they now can approach the court being represented by counsel. So a lawyer is there to put forward your defense, to speak on your behalf. And we have helped persons who were convicted. And in fact, in one instance, we provided a DNA report at the appeal level, and we were successful.
The council continues in its bid to reach more persons in need across the country using a Justice mobile unit acquired through the Citizen Security and Justice Program and its international partners. The unit has been taking the service to some 50 communities, particularly in rural Jamaica and the inner city yearly.
And now we shift gears straight to the kitchen. It is one thing to grow your own food in your backyard garden at that, but to be able to turn it into delicious, nutritious meals is another thing. In this next feature, we cook with Cara Pessoa.
The Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries recently outlined the Grow Smart, Eat Smart campaign. an initiative designed to strengthen food security and safeguard Jamaica from global threats. One aspect of the campaign is the drive for Jamaicans to grow what they eat. One of our local chefs will prepare a dish from produce from her garden.
My thing is make your hand, turn your hand, make fashion. So how it came about is my ackee mash up, boil it out. So I needed to use it. And I came up with Alfredo. And it is vegan, it's healthy. Every ingredient that I have in here, it's local. So I'm gonna start off with, or you can use any onion. I just think the red onion looks nice. So I'm going to just julienne this because I want it to stand out. Cut out the stem so then you get them loose. And then here I already pre-cut some tricolor bell peppers, or what we call sweet pepper, red, yellow and green. We have some string bean and some julienne carrots. Right here we have some local cherry tomatoes, which, you know, grows wild in some garden. Garlic, which, you know, is a must in our seasoning. And from here I have some dry seasoning. So I have Italian herb, I have some dried basil and my salt and pepper mix. And I'm also going to cut up a little scotch bonnet because, you know, Jamaica we say. This recipe takes about 30 minutes as long as you have everything prepped. The longest part is probably sauteing the vegetables. From here we move to our stove. So on medium heat, well, I have my pasta about to go into the boiling water. You can use any pasta you want. I'm just using what I have in the house today, which is some tagliatelle. From here, I'm going to turn on my skillet. You can use coconut oil if you feel, or olive oil, or whatever oil you have at home. And our oil is now hot. Cook your onions first, because you don't want raw onions. The next would be your carrots and your green beans, because they're raw. I didn't blanch them. So as you can see, the pasta is boiling. And I'm going to add my garlic. Now this is an Alfredo, so I put a lot of garlic. At this point, I'm going to actually add my aromatics, which is I have some fresh thyme here. And you're developing your flavors, you're building. I'm going to also add my dry herbs, which is my Italian and basil. At this point, if you have extra ackee, I'll put a little bit in there. And you can use any vegetable you want. And then I'm also going to add my peppers at this point. And then I'm going to check my pasta, which is about al dente right now. And at this point, you can add your coconut milk from your coconut tree if you have any coconuts that are dry. I also have my scotchy. You can put as much or as less as you want. And from here, you can serve it in a bowl. You know, a deeper dish is probably better for pasta. Give it some height by twisting it. Sauce it up as much as you want. So I'm going to garnish it with my basil, my fresh basil. This is called chiffonade, where you ribbon it. You can also garnish with parsley, which I have growing at home as well. And clean up your plate, don't be like me. And there you have it, ackee pasta Alfredo.
And there are other dishes like this one that you can use ackee to create, such as curry ackee pasta, the traditional sawfish with ackee, and here is something you may not hear of often, ackee pockets with cocoa bread.
The message to our consumers who depend on us to provide wholesome and nutritious food to their household is not just to eat, but to eat smart.
Thank you so much for tuning in to today's show. Visit our website, jrs.gov.jm, to catch up on Jamaica Magazine and so much more. I'm Adrian Atkinson. Thank you so much for watching.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.